Unicorns.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Yes, yes.
Hey guys, how's it going? It is Telltale Guys. We bring you legends, myths, and lore. May have gotten that in the wrong order, but you get the point. I am Zane, one of your co-hosts, and I'm also with my other co-host, Josh. How is your week going? And Josh, it looks like you're at a different part of your house.
Yes, indeed, I am going through a little bit of a house reno. So my normal recording setup is unavailable to me. So I have to make do in a very cramped, cluttered space. So it might look like I'm a hoarder with my background. I try to spare y'all from the view that's currently in the rest of the room. It's just, it could be a TLC show with how much boxes. But other than that, trying to stay dry from the hurricane and stuff. So.
Yeah, Josh is a little bit further north in the suburbs than I am, so I'm sure you're okay. It was kind of bad. We had a huge tree fall just a block away from us, just on the main road.
Oh,
So pretty scary. Thankfully it didn't fall in anyone's houses, but still huge. But I feel like closer to the city, things were kind of crazy.
yeah, I hadn't seen too much damage up this way, just a lot of water. I didn't see any trees fall, and we didn't lose power, so that's fine. And is your house by a lot of trees? You got a lot of big, yeah.
Yeah, we had a huge branch, which was essentially a tree, fall on our fence a couple of weeks ago, so we had to deal with
Ah,
that. So that wasn't fun, but thankfully we were all right. There really wasn't much damage besides the fence, but
oh, that's good.
it kind of hit the carport, but not too bad. But yeah, it's been kind of crazy weather lately, right at the end of hurricane season.
Yeah, go out with a bang. That's what I always say.
Hmm. Well, storms and all that has nothing to do with our topic, but
No.
can you give us a little inside scoop of what we're talking about this week?
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about unicorns, Zane.
Oh, all
Everybody's
right.
familiar with those, I'm sure. But before we get into it, make sure you like, subscribe, and check out our channels on all our socials and whatnot. Telltale Guys, you'll find us. Look
Mhm.
for our logo and our mugs.
Yep.
But
Which our mugs are a little bit different now. Like you're sitting in like a lower chair because of your
yes,
setup. I'm
yes.
sitting in a different chair because my other one got soaked because of the hurricane. It's just a
Oh,
camping chair I bring in the house, and so now I look very tall and you look
yes.
shorter. So our whole setup today is different.
Yeah, and I'm looking the opposite way now.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
there's that too. But something that always looks in the same direction is the unicorn, Zane. Actually, that's not true. I just made that up.
Good ad lib.
But maybe let's start the topic off with a question, a seemingly obvious answer to the question, Zane. Unicorns, are they real? Maybe get your hot take right up front. What do you think?
I say no.
No for
Um,
Zane.
I mean, if we're going for the stereotypical magical looking one, then no. But
Okay.
if we are being misinterpreting for like a narwhal or whatever it is, then yes. I don't know. Maybe you're gonna go into that.
Yeah, so we will be going into that. So let me bring up my slides here. I guess you got to know what a unicorn looks like for those who don't know. Here's
Majestic.
here's a here's a picture of one, kind of an old school one, but this is pretty much I think the classical interpretation. It's like a horse-like thing with a twirly type of horn and cloven hooves. So obviously, I think this is what everyone pictures when they think of a unicorn, not necessarily the rainbow hair ones that are
Mm.
kind of prevalent in society now. But usually the unicorns have some sort of magical property like flight, healing properties, wish granting abilities, or, rainbow making, as in today. They are featured prominently in our pop culture, legends, music, and even some national symbols.
And some
These
very
are,
weird YouTube videos too. So
yeah,
Charlie the
Charlie
Unicorn.
the Unicorn. And what was it? What was the mountain he's in? Uh,
Magic Mountain Charlie. Something like that.
yeah, yeah. Did you watch any of these movies? Any of The Last Unicorn or Unico?
Uh, No, I don't think I did actually. Maybe the first one.
The Last
That
Unicorn.
yeah, that looks fairly familiar, but
Very good films here. It's like a fantasy film about a unicorn, and the other one is like an anime about a unicorn.
what time frame did these come out?
These both 80s, I believe.
80s. Okay.
So yeah, they're kind of old school, but very good animation and they hold up. Fantastic stories. Unico, one of my favorites from child. It's weird because it's Japan, but it's about like this little baby unicorn type of thing, and it gets exiled and kind of travels the world doing things. Uh, but I recommend them. I think you can find them on YouTube.
Okay.
The whole thing. But they're also, and this right here, the middle picture is the album from the Unicorns from the 2000s. Who Will Cut Our Hair When We're Gone? A fantastic album. It was also featured in How I Met Your Mother. If you watch that, but
Okay.
recommend that album. It's great. Kind of a side note. But they're also featured heavily on country flags and crests and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Symbols of nations, the unicorn, representing Scotland in the coat of arms, is always depicted bounded by a golden chain, which is often seen passing around its neck and wrapping around its body. The unicorn was believed to be the strongest of all animals, wild and untamed, and that it could only be humbled by a virgin maiden.
Oh,
Yes,
well,
of course.
yes.
There's a little bit more on the medieval times that legend comes in there. But
Mhm.
these right here, these are, from the coat of arms of Scotland, Lithuania, and I forgot the other one. Let's see, what is that? It's Nova Scotia on the right. Nova Scotia coat of arms. And then the Mary Queen of Scots, that was her symbol, the kind of the brown one in the middle there.
Okay.
Yeah, so humbled by a virgin maiden, some kind of magical beast that's very strong. It all sounds fantastical, and a lot of the attributes that we kind of ascribe to it now are more modern. But maybe let's take a look back in time, Zane. Go back to when unicorns were first mentioned, not so much the modern interpretations of these creatures.
Hmm.
So we're gonna have to go back. Let me make this slide a little bit bigger, or see, how do I do that? I have to scrunch my window because my workspace is so small now.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
you're a
you
little
can
bit
make
of
it
a
bigger, Zane. Can you
disadvantage.
make
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
there
can
you
do it.
go.
I have the power. There
There
we
you
go.
go. Zane's got the all right. So let's go back to the first unicorn, and this is the Indus Valley civilization, Zane. We're going to around 3300 BC to 1300 BC in India. There's that purple part right there. That's the Indus Valley. And that's the portion where we're going to first see the depictions of a unicorn in imagery.
Okay.
So
Huh.
this is just zoomed in a little bit of the particular region here of the Indus Valley, one of the cradles of civilization, along with Mesopotamia and such. There we go. So here's
Wow.
a picture
Huh.
of what the Indus Valley. These are known as like unicorn seals from Mohenjo-daro. That's one of the cities in the the civilization there in Indus Valley. An interesting topic in of itself, Mohenjo-daro. But we see here is depiction of a long-necked, bushy-tailed, and cloven hooves type of creature. It's also a common depiction of this unicorn. I think more modernly is just like today they show unicorns more like with just one hoof, like a horse. But back in older art, it's depicted as cloven hooved, like two
What
hooves.
and what other creatures are cloven hooves?
Things like
Goat,
cows, goats,
goats.
things herbivores like that, deer, ungulates.
Now, I'm not too much of like a horse guy, but like, are
Mhm.
they have their hooves, but are they like cloven with like that cut in the middle?
Yeah,
Or
cloven means it got that cut in the middle.
okay,
Like
so
two, it's like two toes. Horses have one toe, one big toe.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and there's
I always
other
assumed like a unicorn was just like a regular horse, except with the horn and maybe some wings or something like that. And I realized there was a little difference with the cloven hoof.
Oh yeah, and yeah, you'll notice on these older arts they're pictured with cloven hooves, which is an interesting distinction because that's something that's really specific not to horses, right? So, but you see it shown here, and especially older art, like I said, cloven hooves, and this one has more like an ox-like tail with a tuft on the end. You see there, like it's
Hmm.
not like that bushy horse tail that you're used to with the modern unicorns. It's like big
Hmm.
flowing tails. They're much more like this, like a bull tail almost is
Right.
what classical descriptions of these things look like.
Yeah, with like this visual here, like I'm immediately more thinking like ox cow type thing, especially
Mhm.
with its male area. That kind of reminds me. But
Sure, yeah.
interesting.
So, this seal, it shows some kind of a blanket or halter on this animal, and the horn is like spiraled and slightly curved, as you can see, or it's ribbed, maybe. It could have like a rib type of texture on its horn. And it looks like it has some kind of folds in its jowls there, you
Hmm.
see, kind of there. And in front of the animal on this particular seal, there's some kind of stand, like a ritual type of stand, and a square on it with grids on top. It could be something like a sieve or like a cylinder representation on that stand. And there are other unicorn seals from this area as well of this time that depict similar type of picture. So it's not a one-off. Like this was a common thing that was seen in the imagery back then. And you can see it has some text above it, but this text has not been deciphered, though, from my understanding, because it's kind of like a lost civilization language, and there isn't like a lot of they don't have like a Rosetta Stone type of thing with it to kind of cross reference it. It's like one of the very first things. So some people do think though that this particular picture of a unicorn depicts something like cattle, wild cattle, what we would an auroch is what they think it is. The auroch is like the ancestor of all modern cows. It was huge. It was much bigger than any cows we have currently. They kind of look like the Spanish fighting bulls, that black bull.
Hmm.
They look like that, but like twice as big as that.
Oh, jeez, good
Yeah.
lord.
So they were very feared and stuff, and they're interesting. Kind of as a side note, aurochs went extinct in like the 1600s, I think, and Poland was like the last one. And so, but they're not around anymore. But back in the day, they were like in everything. However, I it's kind of this is why this seal's a little bit controversial of if it's being interpreted as a unicorn per se, because some people think it's just this extinct giant cattle. But when I think of wild bovine, I don't think any of them have ribbed horns like that. So they're all smooth. So
Hmm.
why is this thing depicted with ribbed horns and also the other characteristics, the long kind of longer neck and the folds in its face? It's not really aurochs didn't really have that look to it. They were kind
Hmm.
of more muscular, beefy, short necked, I think. But here is also a one horn depiction of an animal from, and this was, the ancient one. This one's also old.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this one is from the Northern Wei period in China. So this is going to be 386 to 534 AD. So a little bit later, obviously, but still very old. And it looks more like a kind of like a donkey with a horn on it. It looks like, right?
It almost looks like a fox or a wolf with a horn on it, which would be cool in itself, except for those hooves, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting little statue.
Yeah, very, very interesting, and with the horn. So let's see. Those are just kind of imageries, but let's maybe look at the earliest writings
Hmm.
of what we have here. Oops, hold on. Not ready for that picture yet. So the first writings, this comes from the Greek physician and historian Ctesias of Cnidus. I don't know if I said those right. Probably not. But this person,
Snitus.
Cnidus, I may
It's just not an attractive word.
no. That's why he's commonly just called Ctesias.
It's a little better.
Yeah. So he lived in the 5th century BC, and he was well traveled and accomplished, and he joined the entourage of King Artaxerxes in battle. He was Persian. Um, and he helped in negotiations and other swanky writings that the Persian bigwigs needed. Anyway, he wrote in his book Indica, or on India, about the unicorn, describing them as some type of wild ass. So let me just play for you a little bit of this description. We had to use the chrono zoom to go back in time and get him to actually talk here. So here's this one. Among the Indians, there are wild asses as large as horses, some being even larger. Their head is of a dark red color, their eyes blue, and the rest of their body white. They have a horn on their forehead, a cubit in length. The filings of this horn, if given in a potion, are an antidote to poisonous drugs. This horn, for about 2 palm breadths upward from the base, is of the purest white, where it tapers to a sharp point of flaming crimson, and in the middle is black. These horns are made into drinking cups, and those who drink from them are attacked neither by convulsions nor by the sacred disease. No, they are not even affected by poisons. If either before or after swallowing them, they drink from these cups.
I imagine this individual has got to have a very like dyed hair, kind of like the ancient days, like a very extravagant looking individual. So
he sounds like a dork.
Yeah.
Like a dandy almost. Perhaps he was like an ancient dandy.
that sounds about right.
So, okay, that's the first description we have of unicorns in writing. He also mentions that the unicorns are very quick and they are hard to catch, even if riding on horseback. Note, he did not actually claim to have seen one himself. He based these on eyewitness accounts. But later Greek historians and all other historians also seem to reinforce his claims. So this next writing we have is from the Roman Claudius Aelianus, sometimes Aelian.
Wow. Right.
In his book On the Nature of Animals. So let me play what he had to say about the unicorn here. Again, with the chronozoom, reaching back in time and pulling out his words as he was transcribing them.
Such an amazing scientific object that we have access to.
Yeah, revolutionary. Here he is.
I've heard that in India, there are wild donkeys as big as horses. The rest of their body is white, but the head is very nearly purple, and their eyes exude a deep blue color. They have a horn on their forehead, almost a meter long, and the lower part of the horn is white, the upper part a deep dark red, and the middle a dreadful black. I hear the Indians drink from these colorful patterned horns, not all of them, but the mightiest of Indians, and on sections of them they inlay gold as if adorning the arms of a beautiful statue with bracelets. They say the one who has tasted from this horn becomes ignorant and unburdened of incurable diseases. He is not seized by convulsion or what is called the sacred disease, nor destroyed by poisons. Even if he had drunk something harmful earlier, he vomits this up and he becomes healthy. It is believed that the other donkeys across the world, both tame and savage, and the other single-hooved beasts, do not have knuckle bones. They do not have bile on the liver. But Stetius says the horned Indian donkey has knuckle bones. It is not without bile. The knuckle bones are said to be black, and if someone grinds them up, they're even like this inside. They are swifter not only than donkeys, but even horses and deer. They start with a slow pace, but bit by bit they get faster, and to pursue them is, to put it poetically, to chase the uncatchable. When the female gives birth and leads the newborns around, the fathers, who herd with them, also guard the offspring. The donkeys spend their time in most desolate of the plains of India. When the Indian people go on a hunt for them, the parents let the tender and still young offspring graze behind them, while they fight for them, and go meet the enemy horsemen and strike with their horns. Their horns are so strong Nothing can withstand a strike from them. Instead, they give way and are broken in two, and sometimes they're shattered and made useless. In the past, they have hit the horses' ribs, even tearing them open and spilling their vital organs. That is why the horsemen dread getting close to them. The penalty for getting close is most pitiable death, and both they and the horses are destroyed. They are able to kick terribly as well, and their bite goes down so deep that everything they get a hold of is ripped off. When full grown, one cannot catch them alive. Instead, they are shot with javelins and arrows. And when the Indians have stripped their horn from the corpse, they handle them in the way I mentioned. The meat from the Indian donkey is inedible. The reason? It is naturally very bitter.
It'd be nice with this very pleasant, cultural music, as if this
Yeah.
this Roman actually had like some sort of Romanesque accent to go along with it. That beautiful music that we heard, but
Yeah, it would
Chronozote
be.
kind of
Maybe he wasn't feeling like being very creative that day when he was narrating himself.
that sounds like about right that day. Yeah, we caught that Roman on a bad day.
Yeah, he was practicing he was workshopping some voices for his orating. Uh, yeah, so these descriptions here very specific, right? And you can see he built a little bit off of the Cessius's descriptions from earlier. This seems like he has a lot more details from people. To me, it doesn't seem like something that would be necessarily like just made up on a whim. It's like if you were making up a story about a creature, you wouldn't like get this detailed about like how it protects its offspring, how it fights, and stuff like that. This particular unicorn sounds more like a murder beast to me. It's very big and strong,
Mm-hmm.
and people are scared of it. A rhino, perhaps, Zane.
Yeah.
Have you thought this is a popular theory, I guess, of the unicorn as being a rhinoceros, particularly because it's in India,
Mm-hmm.
an Indian rhino, which is this guy here. You can make him bigger if you like.
Oh yes, I can
Yeah,
do that.
you can
It's,
describe that if you like.
well, it's not the most extreme visual of a rhino that most people might think of, where with the huge horn. It looks exactly like a rhino, except its horn is just kind of meh. He's not packing a lot. But I'm sure though, if he charged you, you would be absolutely destroyed, and I would be terrified to be close to this animal.
Yeah, also notice the Indian rhino, it's armor plating, Zane. So the
Mm.
folds and the wrinkles there in his
Hmm.
neck. You see those?
Yeah,
Very
reminds me that that one of those first pictures we saw.
a little bit of that Indus Valley picture. Although the body type not quite as slender, right?
No.
So not nearly there, but as far as rhinos go, very powerful and scary creatures. So a lot of people think, and here's some more pictures of the various rhino
Oh,
types that we have. You got your ones that most people think of, the African ones, the white and the black rhino with the
yeah.
giant horns, but they have two horns, Zane. They don't have just the one horn.
Oh,
The
right.
the lesser and the horn rhino there from India and the Samaran rhino, they all have one horn. So it's like much more applicable to what a unicorn might be, perhaps.
Those
So a lot of
animals
people,
are just crazy. Like they just look prehistoric.
right? Yeah, they're maybe you're getting thinking along the right track there, Zane. So a lot of people think rhinos, as a candidate for unicorns, but if you ask me, what it doesn't look like anything that's compared to the description, other than it has the one horn, right? It's not a colorful horn. It doesn't have a coat, no fur. It and it runs. Rhinos can run about 35 miles per hour. I wouldn't call them fleet of foot, though, like the
Mm.
descriptions there that we heard, but they are dangerous and powerful. As that part seems to fit the description that we just read or was uh, spoken to us by the Roman. But again, not very donkey-like, right? And doesn't really have the doesn't fit the description of donkeys what they were talking about, like a horse type of thing, even though
Do
rhinos
you
are distantly related to horses.
Do you know offhand, and this is just really kind of talk about rhinos themselves, the armor, is it just like thick folds of skin or
Yes.
is there okay, it's nothing like bone or
No,
anything like
it's
that,
just
or
very, very thick skin, and it does function like armor. It's tough. Like that's part of the things. Like you couldn't really like they're hard to take down with anything because they're so tough. It's
Mhm,
like you're not going to get it with a stick necessarily.
mhm.
Um, but let's put a pin in the rhinos for now, I guess. So let's look at some words commonly associated with unicorns. Of course, rhinoceros from the Greek rhine, meaning nose, and keras, meaning horn. Nose horn, that sounds right for a rhino, the
Mhm.
horn out of their nose. Also, notably, the Greeks used the word monoceros, uh, and that was used by Pliny the Elder in his natural history, describing the creature with the body of a horse, the head of a stag, and the feet of an elephant, with the tail of a wild boar. A little bit more closer to what you would think of as, a rhino, perhaps. One black horn in the middle of its forehead, about 1 to 3 feet in length, and possible to capture alive. So, Monosaurus sounds like a rhino to me. The word unicorn comes from, I think a translating type of necessity from the Old Testament, from the Hebrew to Greek. In the 3rd century BC, they came across an odd creature in the scripts. In Hebrew, the creature's name was Ra'im, R E apostrophe E M, and was described as large and powerful. Here is a description from the Bible, specifically Job 39:9 to 11 from the 1611 King James Version. I'll just read it. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee or abide by thy crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Wilt thou trust him because his strength is great, or wilt thou leave thy labor to him? So that's in the King James Version from 1611, where it says the word
Interesting.
unicorn. Now, the modern version, what they translate that word, that Hebrew word re'im, into nowadays, they think it means more wild ox. So,
Mm.
the modern passage in Bible translations would be something like this: Is the wild ox willing to serve you? Will he spend the night at your crib? Can you bind him in the furrow with ropes? Or will he harrow the valleys after you? Will you depend on him because his strength is great? Or will you leave him to labor, or leave to him your labor? So, okay, from the standpoint of the word unicorn coming from a translation issue with, Hebrew to Greek into English, that kind of makes sense, that the theory that the term unicorn was a combination of two animals being mistakenly translated as the auroch. I mentioned that earlier, that giant bull. So it was kind of like a combination between the giant bull and the rhinoceros. That word "raim," I guess. So case
Very, very
closed.
much, terrifying.
Yes. So case closed, or is it? So still, the auroch didn't have one horn, so it's like they have two horns. All right, and both of these creatures were massive, powerful beasts. Right, the auroch, as I mentioned before. And while some conflations with the rhino, also a giant, powerful beast, with the Greek description may be possible, the idea of the fleet footed, single horned animal still remains elusive to me. So you got these giant creatures, right? They're big, they're massive, they're strong. There might have been some confusion between text translations here and there, but I'm thinking maybe the original descriptions of these creatures, it's not the same creature still, because they vary still greatly from what we have in those, the auroch and rhinoceros. So a twisty horn, remember the curly
Mhm.
horns or whatever. Perhaps we have the narwhal.
Narwhal.
Yes, this is also another popular thing for people to say, "Oh, unicorns just based off the narwhal horns that were blah, 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 blah." Okay, whatever. They have giant horns that twist. Okay, that's cool.
Mhm.
Unicorns of the sea, but I don't buy it, Zane. I say no, I don't buy it. This is where they live. This is where narwhals live. So not
That's
many
very
people.
far away.
Yes, up in the far Arctics, like not a lot of people in Greece or ancient India were traveling up in that area to kind of like parlay, hey, there's this thing in the water that has this horn, but all no, let me just say it's like a donkey and it runs around. So
Well, Buddy the elf, he had a very constructive discussion with a narwhal and it helped him
yes,
on his
yes.
journey to New York. So perhaps there was
Bye,
inspiration
buddy.
there.
Hope you
Yeah,
find your dad.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
maybe.
Perhaps. Another thing with the narwhals, though, is like their horns. It's a tusk. It's their tooth growing through their head,
Ah, okay.
and they're about 4 feet long. So I think a bit longer than what is described in the what we mentioned earlier from the Greek saying. It's like I think like a foot and a half, or say no, 2.5 feet maybe. A cubit is like distance kind of roughly between your elbow and hand. So it's like 2.5 feet long, something like that.
So their tusk is 4 feet long.
Yeah. Well, a narwhal's is,
Narwhal.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But, actually the
basically my height.
unicorn,
Okay, got it.
yeah, the new unicorn description, I think, is, like, maybe about 2 feet, something like that.
Okay.
So, I don't buy the narwhal here. But another candidate, perhaps, and this is also a popular one, Zane, is
Hmm.
the oryx. Have you seen these creatures before?
Mhm. Is that
You
how their name is pronounced?
Oryx? Yeah. Oryx.
I don't know why I thought it sounded different.
What
Anyways,
did you think
okay.
it was?
I don't know, like
Onyx?
onyx or yeah,
Yeah,
something.
that's a rock.
Well, uh, the more you know.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. So okay, this one too. This is an antelope. So a lot of people always like, oh, people thought this was a unicorn because when it stands sideways, it looks like it only has one horn. So they say that's the answer, and I'm like, sorry, no. Anyone who's looking at this thing for longer than a split second will know it has two horns, even if it's
Mhm.
standing sideways. Like you'd have to like just stand there and not move at all, and it not move at all, and be stupid and think, oh, it only has one horn because I'm looking at it sideways.
You're
Um,
really you're not a big fan of these people that you're talking about.
no, these people, Zane, they're not my kind of people.
Mm.
So this is where oryx live. There's 4 different species here, but the kind that I think most people attribute is going to be the Arabian one up there. It lives in the little blue dots there in Arabia, and that's kind of has the most, I guess, straight horns. That if it stands sideways, it kind of looks like it's one horn, I guess. Um, but this one lives, in the Arabian Peninsula, and antelopes sometimes do have ribbed spiral horns.
Hmm.
So maybe there's something in India that is like this creature that has an antelope, type of thing with these horns. So let's look and see what India has, because again, this was in Arabia, not in Africa, not in India or Greece type of area where people were. So we have this creature
Hmm.
here. This is in India. This is called Nilgai, Nilgai, I think, which means blue cow, and is the largest antelope in Asia, and it weighs
Hmm.
240 to 640 pounds. And you can see it's a weird looking antelope when you think antelope. It kind of
Yeah.
has more like a cow head,
Mhm.
and it's got like a pretty
Gigantic
massive,
body.
yeah, it's a big creature. But its head kind of small, doesn't really look like what you would think a unicorn, because I mean, look at its horns. It's like kind of small little horns on the side of its head. Looks more like little cow horns.
Mhm.
Not really the more impressive one outside the straight of the head. Okay, so that's one of the antelopes in India. Here's another one. This one is called a black buck, and it has the spirally horn, which is cool. But again, the two
Mhm.
horns probably looks a little bit closer to the unicorn body type of what you think, although it doesn't really have that tail. And then they're kind of small. These are like 130 pounds, so like deer sized, you know. And once again, it's not a single horn, so not really going to mistaken this thing for having one horn either. So
Mm-mm.
I don't think this is necessarily the right candidate as well.
That is probably one of the coolest horns, though, of
Hmm.
these creatures that exist.
Yeah, I mean it's neat. I mean they all very impressive headgear. Yeah, I will say. So how about maybe something just like an occasional, maybe it's a genetic freak, Zane. Maybe it's like a one-off type of thing. Maybe it was just something like one of these creatures that just had like one horn that's growing out of its head. Like this.
Oh,
This is a
that's adorable.
deer. Yeah, this is a deer that was found on an Italian nature preserve in 2008. And as you can see, it doesn't have two antlers like you're familiar with deer. It has just one growing out of the front of its head, one little point there.
Mhm.
So that's kind of neat. Okay, maybe we're getting a little closer here.
Is that
Or
supposed to
here,
be the male?
this would be a male deer. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the males usually have the
The antlers, yeah. I
antlers.
think
Yeah.
only reindeer have females have antlers in the reindeer family, as far as deer go. So all the other ones, males have the antlers. Um, so then we have this one here
Oh wow.
too. This is a cow, Zane, or a bull that was found in Brazil in 2015. It's a little harder to see in this picture, but it's, cows usually have the two horns at the head. This one just has the one straight forward out of its skull. So they think it was like a genetic mutation that just kind
Mm.
of happened. I know there's been people that have kind of bred these things to have one horn as well. I think a thing that cows can do is like, because all right, you think they got the horns right, and their horns grow out of these buds, but
Mm.
if they do something, they can like kind of merge them into one. I think, yeah, if they cut off the buds and transplant one on the forehead, then it'll grow out of its forehead. So
So this has to be purposely done by humans?
not necessarily. This could be a genetic thing because it just found it like wandering around.
Oh,
But
right. Okay.
humans can achieve this same thing by doing like an operation to stick a horn on the middle of their head.
Mm.
It's a lot of sugar for the dime. I don't know why you would do it,
Yeah.
but somebody trying to make a unicorn breed to, sell them or whatever is cute would do that. And there was a doctor that did it. I can't remember their name, but it was back in the day. Um, so okay, maybe a genetic freak, but that wouldn't explain like a population of them and them surrounding their babies and having a common occurrence of them fighting them and taking their horns and drinking from them, right? So I don't think necessarily a genetic freak would be the thing. But let's maybe turn our focus to something more ancient, Zane.
Whoa.
Yes. So this has gained popularity recently as being the unicorn. This is called, and let me see if I can get the name right,
You won't.
Elasmotherium, or the Siberian unicorn.
Sounded
Eh,
pretty good, actually.
Thank you. It's a relative of the rhinoceros, and had hair, commonly depicted with it. And as you can see here, it's a massive horn growing out of the center of its forehead,
Jeez.
and it looks like I mean, they're bigger than I think what rhinoceros are today, so that would kind of check with its giant, intimidating nature. Who's to say how fast this thing ran? It lived on the plains up there, so it probably could run pretty fast, I would imagine. um
What planes again?
like the steppes of the Siberian steppes, kind of
Okay.
in or Eurasian, I think is where it came from, the Eurasian steppes. Um, but let's go back to the original description, what we had from the Greek, right? So we had a red head, a white body, and blue eyes, essentially. So could it have looked something more like this, perhaps?
Oh
This
wow.
is my artist rendition of that creature, the Elasmotherium, maybe with a different color scheme than what was depicted, because we don't really have that. But it could have had white fur, like polar bears have white fur, and maybe its
Mhm.
head was a little bit reddish, and horns could obviously be the colors that describe: red on the tip, black in the middle, and white on the bottom. So yeah, maybe there was a subspecies of it that was kind of a little bit smaller, perhaps, or had this kind of variation. So anyway, these creatures, though, and why we bring this particular creature up is because initially they thought they died out 200,000 years ago, which a long time. But recent DNA analysis suggests that this creature was alive at least 35,000 years ago. So well within human memory to be passed down, and especially in stories and ancient Indian valleys or whatever like that.
Mhm.
And maybe a surviving population lasted even longer than that. So what do um okay, so this kind of looks like this, right? And all these unicorn descriptions through the ages, they all kind of look a little bit different though. So they don't really look like this big beefy thing, right? Oh,
Oh,
one more note about that. They do have, see, like rhinos, they do have like the hooves, but they have like three toes. So
interesting. I
cloven
did
kind of.
notice that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like a horse with one. You might want to make this one a little bit bigger too. So these are just kind of like people's drawings of unicorns through the ages. Some examples here. They all kind of look a little bit different. They're kind of drawn more sveltly, the thinner,
Hmm.
longer legged. Got that singular horn, of course.
What is with like medieval drawings, like the middle one, the bottom middle, like a lot of like animals, they just look kind of derpy. Um,
I
it's just like the
think the
face.
scientific term, derpy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just noticed that with um these type of medieval drawings.
Yeah. I think maybe they just didn't have good references and they didn't take the time to look at the
Yeah,
animal. And unicorns are very hard to catch, Zane. So you're not going to get a good one
apparently.
to sit down for you. But the unicorn in medieval times did have lots of legends and stories around, capturing them, maidens and stuff like that. This is the bottom left there. That's like a tapestry that's pretty famous. I think it's Scotland, of them, like a captured unicorn that I guess they use for depicting certain things in virtue, and it's also big in Christianity. I think the unicorn represents, baby Jesus or something a lot of times in
Hmm.
art. So it's something that's very, very prevalent and it's kind of evolved over the ages. Obviously, here's
I
a
did not know about that with the, I guess, analogy to Christ and all that. So I guess it kind of makes sense. I should have known that, but I guess I'm just not the best Christian.
Yeah, I think, well, if you get into more like the artwork that depicts it, like Renaissance art and stuff like that, they use unicorn symbology a lot to kind of like be a stand-in for the baby Jesus or something like that. But also too, I think it has a lot of symbology with the virgin stuff with it as well. So they
Oh,
tie
right,
that
right.
kind of to the Virgin Mary, but also too, I think there's a little bit of medieval eroticism going on because of the single horn and very
Uh,
phallic and being
yeah.
attracted to the virgin, because there's like virgins can tame it and it lays its head in their
Yeah.
lap and stuff. So it's kind of like
Huh.
wink wink nudge nudge type of thing.
Mhm.
Then again, this slide here is just some more renditions of the unicorn, of what people would draw that it looked like. So a little bit all a little bit different but still kind of similar, I suppose you could say. So not really the giant massive hulking beast that we were depicting with those ancient creatures there, but what if what do we think maybe is going on here? I think the unicorn is a little bit of several things going on. So you can have a combination of the rhinoceros, being mixed with other creatures, um, and making like this one horn beastie to fit the idea of a unicorn. So kind of like, so the unicorn idea is there, and they're like, oh, the rhinoceros is here. Look, that works. It has one horn, so we're kind of like that. We'll put that here. Or that extinct creature had the one horn. That's it. That's the unicorn. So maybe that's what we're going to call the unicorn. But I think that's perhaps because people had memories, from the Ice Age time frame of animals and being passed down and stories of their ancestors, seeing them, and because nothing we have now quite fits, they kind of like square peg round hold it. It's like this is it because this is what we see and this is what we have. And people back then were stupid and don't know what they're talking about. So this is what they're talking about. So to support my view that I think what maybe the unicorn was more of an Ice Age type of animal,
Mhm.
similar to that one I showed you before, but a different one, perhaps. Um, Here's a look at some prehistoric creatures, and you can ask yourself, Zane, if a blue-eyed, red-headed, white-bodied, wild horse-like creature with one horn is so far-fetched. So let's go through some of these here. So you can, yeah, there you go. So these are going to be prehistoric creatures, Zane. And this one's called Xenocurex. and it's got weird headgear. Look at that thing.
Hmm.
It's got the. I don't have too much info on like where they lived or whatever. These were just examples of creatures that had weird stuff on their head. Okay, so to kind of back my theory up for unicorn being some kind of prehistoric beast that had a horn on its head. This is another rhino
Dang.
type of descendant with a weird thing on its head. This one's called Megacerops. It has a Y-shaped horn, very unique looking, cool. I would ride this into battle.
Yeah, I think you would be successful too.
Yeah. So we got that guy there. We also have this one here.
What? Weird.
This is called a unitetherium. And this guy's got all these knobs on top of its head. You can kind of see it looks kind of like a hippo, maybe with fangs, but has like these bumps on its head.
It looks
So,
like an avatar version
mhm.
of like a hippo or something. You would see that in those
Yeah,
stupid movies.
some alien type creature. They're very alien looking, all these things, right?
Hmm.
Here's another guy. You can
Oh
describe
yeah,
this.
derp. That's how I was
Derp.
described.
Okay.
But it's like kind of antelopes we saw earlier, but really long neck, almost as long as a giraffe. But it has this phallic looking nose that just kind of hangs there. It's just not a scary looking creature.
Like a little
It,
trunky, like
Trunky, yeah,
tapier
yeah.
kind of thing. This is called a Macarachenia, I think. Yeah, so when we got this guy here, might be a little bit harder to see, but this guy was interesting because he's got like a kind of like it's like a giant helmet like horn in the middle of its head.
Hmm.
It's like a big bulb there, you see.
Hmm.
This one is called a Sedimotherium. I call it a helmet horn because it just looks like it has a helmet horn.
I like it.
Yeah, but that's weird looking. Giant schnoz, weird looking headgear again. Um, Now this too. Now people might think, oh, a
Ah,
horn on a horse. That's ridiculous. What about a horn on a gopher, Zane? This is a
like a
horned gopher,
it's a
and
gopher.
it's a gopher that had a horn. It had a horn on its head, kind of like a two-pronged horn.
It's
But
very trendy back then to have horns, I guess.
yeah, I mean, lots of things use them for defense and stuff. So I wouldn't think a horned horse is necessarily that far off if you got a gopher with a horn on its head. Um, but very cool there. Now, this one here is probably the weirdest one of all, I think.
Ah,
This one is called a Synthetoxerus, something like that. It's got a forked horned type of prong sticking out of its nose. It's like an antelope, but it has this like Y-shaped fork out of its nose, and it looks like it's like a foot long or something like that. So a little bit, you know, kind of like rhinoceros esque, I guess, but with a deer antler that has two prongs on its nose. So very neat there. Um, and then we got this creature here.
oh wow.
You ever hear of this thing? This is a Barbarossa. This is actually alive today.
Hmm.
And this is a creature that it's like a pig and it lives in Indonesia on
Yeah,
some
it's like kind of
islands.
a warthog type thing,
Hmm.
almost.
But look at this magnificent horns growing out of its head. You know,
Yeah.
could could it be something like that? The unicorn. Like all these examples here of these ancient creatures with weird stuff on its head. I don't see any reason why some kind of horse type of creature couldn't have this type of adornment on its head. So you might ask yourself, why aren't there any fossils then? Where are they? Why can't we find this creature in our records here? Well, I'd venture to say most creatures in all of history haven't been fossilized, right? The process
True.
of fossilization is pretty specific and rare. So, like, just because you don't have it in the fossil record doesn't mean it didn't exist,
Mm.
because the meet a criteria to get fossilized, it has to be like rapid, it has to be buried under like mud, and there's a bunch of other things that have to happen as well. So if these things lived in a place where fossils really didn't get made, you're not gonna find it. And plus, even if they did live in a place where fossils are possible, it's still very rare.
That's interesting
So
because I always thought, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought, yeah, fossils were a lot more common. Like, you human dies in the ground, like there's a good chance it's going to be fossilized for some reason. So I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was such a rare event.
Yeah, yeah, that's I think one of the problems that um maybe science, I don't know, like the problem with using fossil records to justify everything is like it's it's not common enough. I mean, you can get to some places with it, and you can obviously show like, oh, these creatures were here because here's some fossils of it. But like, you're not getting everything. Like, I think the stats something like 99% of all life that ever lived on Earth is extinct, right, or has died. So there's no, like, you don't know where they are, but you don't have fossils of 99% of everything that ever lived, right? So it's
Mhm.
just kind of like there's so many creatures out there and so many, years and stuff like that is just past. It's like you're not going to get a fossil necessarily. So, like
Do
I said,
you
yeah.
do you happen to know, is there a number or a percentage of how many animals that have existed that have been part of the fossil record? I mean, I could look that up. Let's
I
see.
don't even know how you would know that because you wouldn't know how many creatures didn't exist, right? So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Let's
you mean
see.
you're only going to get. I mean, if you kind of think about, okay, dinosaurs, right? Like, okay, we know dinosaurs existed because we got their fossils or whatever like that. But how many of those fossils and or skeletons are even complete? Like, many of them aren't complete. You just know creatures from a single like or bone fragment or tooth, right? Like Denisovans, the human ancestor that they found recently that lives up in like Siberian caves, right?
Mhm.
Like they only identified that from I think like a couple tooth fragments maybe, or a bone finger bone maybe something like that. Like very small percentage of an actual skeleton. So it's like many of these creatures that we know about are from very incomplete fossils. So say if they had a horse fossil of some sort of creature like that, maybe they didn't have the head fossilized, so they're not going to have the record of its horn, right? They're just going to say, "Oh, this body shape is similar to a horse. Here's its feet, and blah, 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 blah. And we think it looks like this," but they don't know for certain because they don't have the full skeleton. So that's the thing.
Well, I did just a quick Google search. It says,
Yeah,
according to current estimates, only a very small fraction, like you said, of animals that have ever lived are part of the fossil record, with scientists having identified around 250,000 different fossil species, representing less than 2% of all species that have ever existed on Earth. And that's like a rough estimate. So
sure, yeah,
I had no idea. I don't know why. Maybe that's just the narrative they want to push, that like fossil record is king.
yeah,
When oh, interesting. I
and yeah, I think you kind of hit like the narratives, right? It's all about narratives and what is wanting to be pushed or acknowledged or whatever. So even if you have, don't have a fossil and people are like, oh, why don't we have the bodies? Blah, blah, blah. Much like the narwhal people and the the oryx people, they're
excuse
not in
me,
the fossil.
hope for like dragons and all these other like legendary creatures that we all are um, interested in.
Yeah. So just because you don't have the proof of it doesn't mean it didn't exist. And maybe, if it does exist in oral traditions like the
Mhm.
unicorns or whatever. As for the more magical properties attributed to unicorns, I think that's a bit of maybe poetic license or wishful thinking and superstition, much like how people use rhino horns today because they falsely think like, oh, if I take this rhino horn, I'm gonna be cured of this thing or whatever. It's very common in um, Eastern medicines. So I think there you have it, Zane. To answer the kickoff question, are unicorns real? Well, no, but
Hmm.
also yes, kind of. So maybe.
Excellent. That clears it
But
up.
yeah, so I think the important thing though is today that they're fun and inspire imagination with people, and so don't forget to get your unicorn on April 9th, which is National Unicorn Day. So
Oh.
a little factoid there.
Um,
So
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, what do you think of unicorns, Zane?
I like where your idea is that they existed in some sort of form, uh, but then there was like oral tradition that passed along information about unicorns, and so we get kind of a mixed bag of what they look like. But I think I like the idea of how maybe they were like ancient, prehistoric, or uh, what's the age that you said, the ice age, like, maybe
Yeah, Ice Age.
coming out of that or something like that. I like that idea, because especially if there's possible record around 35,000 years ago. I mean, it would definitely oral tradition would be huge, because that's getting into the range where written text is kind of hard to come by.
Mhm.
So I like that. I think I want to like it too. Like, I want to think that, yeah, there's some sort of creature like this, and going back to the dragons, it reminds me how in so many different cultures, just like the unicorn, there are visual and literary depictions of it everywhere across these
Mhm.
different countries across the world. So it's like, maybe something like it did exist, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I did stumble across. I mean, there's more to unicorns too, like in like Chinese, Korean folklore and stuff like that. It's a little bit different than our Western unicorn ideas with the single horn thing. So I left them out, kind of like I think they could be their own episode.
Mhm.
And but it follows a similar line. Like it seems like a lot of these creatures existed in some form or another, and it's just a matter of remembering them, or finding a fossil if you could. As far as like them existing 35,000 years ago, perhaps alongside some of these other creatures, there's evidence of woolly mammoths surviving up until I think like 6,000 years ago on
Wow.
Wrangel Island, which is an island in off the coast of Siberia or something, or in the Pacific Ocean somewhere up there. They were a little bit smaller than their mainland woolly mammoths, I think, but they were still around, and there's even talks of them being sighted today. As far as unicorns, I did run across a couple people just like on Reddit or something that said they saw unicorns and kind of
Huh.
they saw them. I kind of left them out just because it was a little hard to verify those type of stories, or
Yeah.
kind of get too far into them without them sounding too woo woo. But it was definitely something that was if people are still seeing something, mm, who am I to say?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good topic. That was a good one. Kind of get into the more cryptid realm there. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should try this week, Zane. What we're gonna do, guys, is going to not do the music portion, the first music portion. We're gonna still have a music portion that relates to the episode in the end credits. So stick around for that. But as far as like the DJ time thing, I think we're gonna try something a little different, where we're gonna try to draw the episode, something from the episode we just talked about in 30 seconds.
Okay.
So I think Zane, you down for that?
I'm ready.
Oh,
Got my
ready
notepad.
already for the paper. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
let's
should have
do
got like a Sharpie so it'd be easier to see. I'll do that next time. But that's all
yeah,
right.
maybe I should do that too. I'm just gonna draw on this little piece of paper here.
Josh
Okay,
has a clear
so
advantage because he's actually a professional artist. So the fact that he came up with this idea is just so he can
I'm
shame
cheating.
me. Yeah.
No, 30 seconds is hard to draw anything for anybody. Yeah, that's not that's not a good amount of time. So all right, Zane. Let me know when you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna put up our swanky new thing. And let's
Go.
see. Okay.
Okay.
Gotta draw the unicorn. Yeah, this is going much faster than I thought.
Oh, yep.
All right, got the win, lose, or draw. No, this is awful.
Ah! All right. I like the eagle.
Yeah. Oh my God, this
All
is
right.
awful, Zane. Okay,
So
I'll show what
maybe
I
like
drew.
do your screen first. Like
Okay.
maximize your screen.
Okay, maximize screen. Let's see
Or
here.
do you want me to do that?
Yeah, you do it.
Okay, I guess I'm going first.
Okay.
All right. Here's my guy.
All right, you got all right. Hold on. You got nice big knife out of its head and
Yeah.
wing. You got a wing on it.
Got a wing on him.
Okay.
He's a little porky. Um,
Beefy. I would be scared of that. It looks like an ostrich with a knife
it,
on its head.
yeah, it kind of like the head of a uh, Nessie or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty good.
I forgot to get the mane, but that's okay.
Wow, you drew it big. I drew mine kind of small, and I didn't even finish it. So I kind of blanked for a minute. Let's
All right,
see.
now how do I just get to you? Oh,
Okay,
I don't
let's
like
see.
that. Maybe you have to do it on your own.
Let's see. How did you do it?
I just hit the one person icon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, no.
Nope.
Oh, you know why? Because you're in the main spot. Let me see. Let me try this. There we go. Okay. So here goes mine. Let's see
Whoa.
if I can.
Oh, yours was really small.
Yeah, it's 30 seconds. You gotta draw smaller. So
but
it looks terrifying.
It looks kind of mad, maybe because it's so small.
Maybe because its hoof hand is like deformed. Oh my god. That was horrible. That was fun. That was fun.
That was good. I like it.
All right, so if you guys like that, maybe we'll do we'll keep doing that kind of thing. That's
And submit your own drawings too of your favorite.
Sure, yeah. Send in your drawing of the episode, and we'll flash it up on screen, and even at you, I guess, or whatever, if you want to send that in at heyguys@telltaleguys.com. Other than that, Zane, you got anything else for the crew?
No, that's it. Just find your rainbow.
Find your rain. I like it. All right.
Josh and Zany start the show, talking myths we all know. Unicorns in the air, magical secrets to share. Zany with his mic so bad, recording makes us all mad. Chronoscope isn't clear, but laughter fills the air here. Unicorns that come alive, and Josh and Zany's wild drive. Drawing dreams with pencil screwed, magic in every mood. Legends of the past will bright, horning creatures in the light. They sketch with all their might, bringing fantasies to sight. Adventure in their words, mystical tales of herds. Audio may sound weird, but joys always appeared. Unicorns that come alive, and Josh and Zany's wild drive. Drawing dreams with pencil screwed, magic in every mood.